The beginning of the story shows a different side of life in Paris in 1999, from theft, robbery, murder, and prostitution. This dirty business is controlled by 6 mafia families who share money and power. However, disputes and wars often occur between them. That's why a figure is needed to maintain order among the mafia. This woman is called the sheriff of the criminal world. She is nicknamed as Fury. Those who meet her will certainly be finished. Next, we are introduced to the main character in this story named Lina Garab. She is a student as well as the daughter of a criminal, while her boyfriend is a policeman named Eli. Lina's father works as an accountant for the mafia bosses. He is in charge of organizing the laundering and distribution of their money without a trace, and this is Lina's father named Darius. Lina wondered why there was 2 million euros in her account. It turned out that it was transferred by her father, which was the result of his work laundering dirty money belonging to the mafia. As Lina and her parents were celebrating her birthday, a bullet suddenly pierced Darius' head. Realizing her daughter was in danger, her mother, Amitis, immediately put Lina in a safe room, while she herself would face them. Long story short, Lina was able to get out after the police broke down her door. Still shocked by this incident, Lina wouldn't answer when the policeman named Kida interrogated her. The policeman said her mother was safe, but Lina was in danger of being thrown in jail because of the amount of money found in her account. The police already know her father's occupation, but they are having trouble opening her father's encrypted documents. Eli comes to free his girlfriend, but they prevent him. Since the police suspect the culprit to be Fury, Lina is forced to explain who really she. Lina chooses to keep her mouth shut about this incident, even though she has to stay in prison for 6 months. The first 1 month, Lina was forced to endure the various beatings she received from other prisoners. Because the police couldn't find the perpetrator of her father's murder, the case was finally closed. But from then on, Lina was determined to hunt down Fury, the alleged killer of her father. On the time of her freedom, Lina taught a lesson to one of the prison guards who had abused her. Because of her actions, Lina is thrown into solitary confinement. Here, she meets a burly inmate to force her to give information about Fury. If in 6 months Lina was a weak woman, not this time. Lina put up a fight and could fight back the burly woman. Finally, Lina breathed free air again. She was reunited with her mother, who had to sit in a wheelchair with her brain cells slightly impaired due to the incident. Now there is only one goal for Lina: to avenge her father's death. Her steps begin by tracing the circulation of the mafia's money, starting from the grassroots. It turns out that Lina's actions have been known by Fury, who gets reports from his men. Lina's photo is displayed along with photos of small children. Lina's reconnaissance continues to the location of an illegal casino on a cruise ship. Sitting at the gambling table, Lina is no choice to participate in the bet, even though her eyes are focused on observing the mafia members who are collecting money. Lina just realized those who lost had to hit their hands with a hammer. Inevitably, she had to continue the game. In order to escape, Lina immediately dropped all her coins, even though Lina won in this game, as one of the players named Orso said. Coming out of the ship, Lina saw these mafia members put all the money into a special car. Fury's men named Bruges kept an eye on Lina's movements, who was watching the money from the casino. Unable to get into the hospital where her mother is being treated, Lina returns to meet Eli, who has been waiting her for a long time. Although Lina was imprisoned for 6 months, Eli Always Be Loyal waited for her. The next day, Lina went back into action to prevent the money truck by posing as a policeman. Although they were thwarted, Lina didn't give up. And here's the stunning her actions. Jumping onto the truck while dangling, Lina could beat the driver, making the truck to stop. The money truck drove away. But not a penny of the money was taken by Lina, because her goal was only to provoke Fury out. Fury's men named Simon came to the location where the money truck was, and it turned out that Lina was on the other side to watch the truck, hoping that Fury's figure would appear. Suddenly, a middle-aged woman accidentally nudged her, even though this woman is Fury, who is communicating with Simon. Fury looked at her casually as her men tried to catch Lina. After escaping, Lina just realized that the woman next to her was Fury. She saw her when Fury going inside to a taxi. In the afternoon, Lina forces the taxi driver to show her where he dropped Fury off. Then Lina broke into her house after seeing Fury come out. Lina also saw documents about her parents, but her action was caught by Fury, who had deliberately led her to come here. And it turns out the burly woman she had beaten up in solitary confinement had been assigned by Fury to confront Lina. Fury was quite amazed by the clever plan Lina made to find her. Apparently, Fur was planning to recruit Lina as her subordinate. Suddenly, Fury's husband named Papu appeared, an ordinary-looking man whose hobby is cooking. It is also revealed that Fury's real name is Selma. After grabbing her gun, Fury says that she is not her father's killer. Lina found the name Jelly from her father's file, who liked to play games with him. According to Fury, Jelly is the nickname one of the Mafia bosses. At that time, Jelly forced his father to embezzle money. Fury introduced his men named the Boos and the other Simon. Finally, Lina was willing to join the sheriff of the Mafia. In other place, a masked man was seen holding a chainsaw in front of Jelly, and after that, the story continues into episode 2. After officially joining, Lina was invited by Fury to meet 6 Mafia bosses called Olympus. As the guardian of order in the criminal world, Fury worked for them. It is not strange that disputes often occur between them because the problem of fighting over money and power businesses. Apparently, Jelly is one of the Mafia bosses suspected of killing Lina's father. Simon revealed a list of the leaders of these high-profile criminals. Starting from Joseph, nicknamed the Duke, whose business is growing marijuana in all the gardens and vertical gardens in Paris. Then there is a couple called Tran, the game manager, and the money truck that Lina stole belongs to them. Then there's Californian, a master hacker who commits e-market fraud and digital extortion. And pickpocketing is his specialty. The female figure nicknamed Mama is in prostitution with many of her customers who are a little crazy. There are the Key brothers, experts in safe cracking and police brains. One of the 3 Mafia brothers is Jelly, who is not there. Fury rounds up these Mafia bosses regarding the death of Lina's father, Darius. As the problem solver, Fury is obliged to investigate this case before it gets out of hand, which could make Paris to fall into chaos. It turns out that Fury has been carrying out this task for years, just like her mother and grandmother did. That's what Simon told Lina. Suddenly, Parks, the chief assassin of the criminal underworld, who is known for his ruthlessness, appears. Lina doesn't stay silent when Parks beats up a waitress. The meeting continues. The Key brothers are not the first to be accused of being Darius' murderer. Suddenly, a package arrives, which turns out to contain pieces of Jelly's body. Fury told Parks to let Lina go. This psychopath underestimated Fury because her hands had tremors. Fury and his men then put the pieces of Jelly's body together. It turns out they didn't find the headpiece. Lina was allowed to go home. She also claims to be staying with her mother at the hospital, even though she is staying at Ely's house. In the morning, Lina gets punished for coming late, but Fury also teaches her to break away from Simon. Boos finds evidence that Jelly hijacked the Mama's container full of young girls for her brothel, but strangely Jelly only brought one of the girls. Because Fury doesn't want the Mama to know about this problem, Lina will be assigned to infiltrate the brothel, because the Mama is keeping something secret. To make a long story short, Lina disguised herself as one of the girls who would work to satisfy the lusts of masher men. After these women were dressed up, Lina secretly infiltrated the Mama's office. However, Lina was trapped in one of the rooms where someone who liked to collect original milk bottles. Lina managed to escape and found the Mama's office filled with sexy female dolls. Lina's task was to find the identity of the woman brought by Jelly. Because there were too many documents, Lina had difficulty finding it. Lina immediately went into hiding after the Mama and Parks came there. Lina, who is smart, disguised herself as one of the dolls. Elsewhere, Simon had expressed his curiosity to Fury, who immediately recruited Lina without the examination and training process first. Back to Lina, Mama shows documents belonging to Asma, the woman brought by Jelly. The illegal immigrant came with her father. Mama assigns Parks to kill both of them, including everyone associated with the container. After they got out, Lina immediately ran away with the documents, but the Parks spotted her and went after her. Hiding in the room, Lina fires a gun out the window for the police to arrive. Then, because she saw that one of the policemen was Lee, Lina was no choice to disguise herself using a costume to cover her face. Unfortunately, Lina was hit by a car, and the culprit turned out to be Kita. The document was taken away, and if Lina wants it back, she has to work with this cop. Lina now lives in an apartment provided by Fury. It turns out that her room is right next to Orso, whom she met at the casino. Without Ali realizing it, Simon entered his house. He is curious about who Lina really is. Now he knows Lina's boyfriend is a policeman. Lina wondered who Orso was, but he didn't want to answer his real profession. In the morning, Fury came to wake Lina up. Armed with the information obtained by Lina, the broods managed to bring Asma before them. It turns out that Jelly doesn't want Asma, but his goal is to get her father, who is an expert key duplicate maker. 3 days ago, her father sent a message that he was fine. From the sound, the team could conclude that Asma's father was in a trailer close to the train tracks, and there was a dog there. Booves then deduced the location where the Asma's father was being kept. Coming to Lina's mother's treatment room, in a photo album, Simon found photos of a child. It turned out that this key duplication expert was being held catch by masked criminals. He gave the key he made according to this person's request. Before leaving, the masked man told his men to destroy the trailer. It turns out that Fury and the team are already there. Lina is shocked because she is faced with a fierce dog who's ready to pounce on her. Meanwhile, Fury and Boogs go into action to slaughter this group. Entering the trailer, Lina searches for clues to what the key is. In a paper, she reads a message written by her father to Jelly regarding a safe. It turns out that in the document that Lina could secure, the special key made of silver is to open the safe. Not just any safe, the criminal is predicted to break into the safe box belonging to the mafia bosses. The safe was guarded by Tran. Since Tran didn't reply to her messages, Fury planned to meet them. The tentative conclusion is that Lina's father is working with Jelly, and it looks like the third person they were working with has betrayed them. The masked figure is the mastermind. But Lina didn't believe that her father would dare to betray Olympus, and now Lina is surprised because Fury already knows about her relationship with Eli. Lina is given the opportunity to break off her relationship with the policeman, or Fury will kill him. Although Lina loves Eli very much, she has no choice. Moreover, Leboogs had already shown his gun. Eli is shocked by his girlfriend's decision to ask for a breakup, even though he has prepared a beautiful vacation with her. Meanwhile, Fury intends to find Tran. But this is what happened. Fury points her gun at the bar, then suddenly there is a huge explosion from the bar. Meanwhile, Lina leaves Eli in tears. Elsewhere, Simon found the grave of 3-year-old Lina. What other facts have not been revealed? And after that, the story continues into episode 3. The story of the formation of Olympus begins with 7 Parisian crime families in 1928. At that time, a war between the mafia broke out when Selma's great-grandmother was having a wedding. From then on, the mafia united and Selma's grandmother became the first Fury to keep peace among the mafia for generations till now. After the explosion, the Fury gets into a shootout with a gang of masked criminals. Selma the Fury fails to stop these villains, yet she is left alive. Arriving at the location, Boogs gives Lina a gun to protect herself, even though Lina doesn't want to kill. Lina then enters the ship. There she almost becomes a victim if Fury doesn't save her. Since the safe couldn't be opened, the villains stole it. It turned out that the safe could be opened because the last part of the key was held by Fury. Instead of money or gold, the safe contained the books of the 6 strongest weapon families of Olympus. The safe would be opened when the mafia bosses gathered once a year during the book ceremony. Inside the book, there was a list of the people named they served. That is, high-ranking people who have been killed. If the contents of this book are leaked, the whole system will be destroyed. The person who stole it was certainly really wanted for power. Then Tran asked Fury for help to get the safe back. If not, they will die. If Tran dies, Fury and his team must also die. Simon reappeared. He claimed to be taking care of Bald Man, the casino guard who had attacked Lina. When Lina was invited, Simon forced Lina to tell him her true identity, because the real Lina had died since she was 3 years old. Lina was surprised, because she herself didn't know if she was not her parents' daughter. Back at the hospital, a nurse secretly contacted someone. Although her mother had amnesia, Lina asked why there were no pictures of her from infancy to age 3 in the album. She was shown a drawing she made as a child. Her mother pointed out that Lina was the black figure in the background. When Lina went into the bathroom, her mother was being held captive by a killer. Luckily, her mother opened fire when Lina was about to be finished off. The killer's body was put into a dirty blanket basket. Her mother told her that Lina was dead. When Lina carried the killer's body, Eli suddenly chased her to the basement. Eli understands very well that Lina is trapped in the case of her father's death. Therefore, Eli intends to help find the killer. When he saw the basket, it turned out that the man's body was no longer there. Apparently, Boots was there, who helped Lina hide it. Back at the base, Simon is apparently beating up Baldy. Fury forces him to talk about why there are no guards at Tran's place. Baldy admits to being ordered around by Herv, Tran's son, who is in cahoots with the masked criminal. Herv was known to have his own business called the Game of Death. The goal is to profit from gamblers around the world, one of which is a game of life and death. Lina was again assigned to go undercover to catch Herv. Fury believes Lina is capable of accomplishing this task, despite the risk to her life. Unable to get into his apartment, Orso invites Lina into his room. He treats her wounds, after which they kiss. Long story short, Fury escorts Lina for her latest mission. She had shown her picture to Fury regarding her mother, who called Lina was her dead child. This is where Lina thinks Fury actually already knows her true identity. She asked if Fury was her mother. Fury replied that she wasn't, but they are still history. After her task to catch Herv was completed, Fury promised to tell her everything. Arriving in a hallway, several people were seen being held caught, as well as Lina. They were forced to participate in a game of death conducted by Herv and his henchmen. The world-class gamblers gathered here to bid fight. After the poison gas was fired, Lina and the other victims ran away as fierce dogs were released to hunt them down. One by one, the victims fall, because the Herv has prepared various deadly traps. Until finally only Lina managed to escape and immediately attacked the Herv to be taken away from the game location. Herv was given a warning shot to tell her where the safe box was. Meanwhile, the Mafia bosses gathered at Tran's place to reopen the safe. The pair were terrified if the Mafia found out the safe wasn't there. It's certain that they will die. Fury asked them to stay calm and smile. The team finally got the safe back. Lena asked why Darius wanted this safe. Herv mentions a surprising fact, because his father wants to keep Lina away from the Mafia life. All this was planned by Darius precisely because he loved Lina very much, even though he had to betray Olympus. These Mafia bosses can't wait to see the safe, and it was already in place. This was all because Lina and her team successfully completed this task. Herv was thrown into a room on the ship. Suddenly, the masked villain reappeared, handing her a gun. Lina was surprised because it turned out that Orso was Park's man, the Mafia assassins who want to arrest Lina, but were prevented by Fury. This is where Fury announces important news to the entire Mafia bosses. She introduces Lina, her niece, is Fury's next candidate. This is make Parks can't just underestimate her anymore. Fury says that Lina's biological father, Driss, is her brother, and her mother, Kahina. Unfortunately, they died in an accident when Lina was a child. After putting all the keys together, the safe was opened, and it turned out to be a piece of Jelly's head. Everyone was shocked. Where is the book? Herv suddenly appeared there, intending to shoot Fury. But Lina shot him first, the first murder she was forced to commit. Eileen now believes that Fury exists, and that his girlfriend, Lena, is trapped in this criminal world. And after that, the story continues into episode 4. Fury tells the story of Driss Arago, Lina's biological father, who was killed in a bad robbery. Then he was chased by the police until he couldn't control his car. Unfortunately, her mother, who was with Driss, also became a victim. But Lina wonders why she was raised by a stranger instead of Fury. Fury argues that she tried to do it, but she didn't want Lina to be in danger. Now Fury has a new problem because Parks plans to judge and coup her with the support of the Mafia bosses. The Mama and Tran have confirmed their support for Parks. Meanwhile, the Key brothers are still hesitant. Therefore, they are Simon's business. Luis would take care of the Duke and the Californians, while Lina was assigned to negotiate with Fahim. Fahim, the boss of these pickpockets or thieves, said he wanted neutral. Lina had pressed him on what he really wanted. Fahim finally agreed to support Fury, but seemed very cautious, as if Fahim had his own interests. Disapproving of Lina becoming Fury's next heir, Parks assigned Orso to kill her. Is Orso up to the task? Back in the morgue, Fury sees the projectile removed from Jelly's head. Interestingly, the doctor finds a paper in his mouth. In the paper, there is a code commonly used by Fahim, who assigns pickpockets as his couriers. To unravel what the code meant, Fury and her team must now investigate Fahim's illicit business. Usually, the sender of the message will divide it into 3, with the aim that if one of them is caught by the police, it will not be successful in deciphering it. The investigation began to get a copy. Fahim's men were seen giving the paper to 3 pickpockets. Lina immediately followed one of the couriers. The 3 couriers were seen entering the photo room to photograph the message. The photo shot was taken by a woman with dreadlocks. Then the woman went to a location. Lina and Fury entered the location. Rather than using a digital alarm or padlock to protect anything valuable in there, it was a series of ancient alarms that used thousands of ropes crossed with bells on them. If they failed to pass through, it was certain that Fahim would appear. Lina actually wanted to go straight in, but Fury held her back until later that night. Lina rushed home after receiving a threatening message from Kida, who would set her up with drugs. Lina was no choice to promise to hand Fury over, but she needs more time. As she leaves, Ellie stalks her. Failing to get into her apartment, Ellie decides to go into the apartment opposite building. Suddenly, the Orso opened fire, and the two engaged in a fierce fight. Lina wondered why the Orso had shot at her, until finally their fight ends with a kiss. This is where Ellie realized that Lina had betrayed him. It turns out that the bullet taken from Jelly's body was destroyed by Olympus 20 years ago. Simon said the culprit was Lina, but Fury doubts. As it turned out, the real fact was that Fury had killed Lina's father. Elaine is even more hurt because the earrings he gave her were found on the floor. Orso himself will certainly get into big trouble if Parks finds out he didn't kill Lina. Then Lina was surprised because what Orso knew that her biological father was fighting Olympus, which led to the Mafia bosses wanting him dead. Therefore, only one person has the right to pull the trigger, which is Fury. Long story short, at night Fury and Lina entered Fahim's places. At the center of this series of traps, Fury's tremor disease recurs, but Lina deliberately steals her medicine until she finds out what really happened to her father. It turns out that at that time, Fury was unable to kill Lina's father, because after all, he was her own brother. Therefore, Fury hid him in a secret prison. Lina continued her mission to get a copy of her message in the car, while Fury herself distracts Fahim to give her more time. Eventually, Lina could find the message. It related to the delivery of weapons on Thursday, the 22nd at 11 p.m. in Greenwich. Not long after, the Mafia bosses come to this location at the invitation of Selma the Fury. Suddenly, Kida sends a message that she has arrested Eli by framing him with drugs found in his apartment. Suddenly, the masked villain appears, asking for the message Lina found. Apparently, it relates to a scheduled delivery of weapons belonging to the Duke that will be robbed by Fahim. After snatching it, the man blows up Fahim's car and drives off. This is where the Mafia bosses finally knew Fahim had betrayed them. They all agreed to execute Fahim. Long story short, Lina confessed to wearing a watch that recorded all of Fury's confessions that she could send to the police, except she said where her father was. And this is where Fury detained Driss. He wants to know the person who wore this bullet. Driss reminds her that the truth will come out. Scene Orso had slaughtered dozens of Park's men, but in the end, Orso was stabbed by Parks. And after that, the story continued to episode 5. Orso, who turned out to be alive, was buried alive by Parks. For the first time, Lina met her biological father in prison. They were both happy. Driss said Lina looked a lot like her mother. Driss wanted to know what Lina had been doing this past week. At that time, Eli was thrown into a holding cell filled with gangsters. His bloodied face was photographed and sent to Lina. Kita has a younger brother named Thomas. She was surprised that Lina was already in her house. Lina claims to be her brother's girlfriend, though this is a form of Lina's counter-threat to this policeman. Lina asked for Eli to be released, or her brother would be the victim. Finally, Eli was free again. Even though he already knew Lina was cheating on him, Eli forgave her again. It turns out that Lina could find this prison not because of Fury, but because of a special police application through Eli's account. However, Eli knew what Lina was doing with his laptop. He even hid the bullet found from the body of the perpetrator who tried to kill her mother. Lina doesn't know that Eli is secretly investigating her. Lina was shocked after seeing a photo of Orso's body in the grave. Simon was seen meeting with Parks to discuss something. He considered the death of Orso to be finished for Parks' dispute with Fury and her team. Will Lina avenge the death of Orso? While relaxing with Eli, suddenly 3 men opened fire brutally. This prospective mafia enforcer of justice acted against them all. After being cornered, Lina was almost shot dead. Fury appeared to save her. Because of this incident, Fury sent Lina abroad for good. However, Lina's father didn't agree with Fury's plan, which he thought was planning something. At that time, Fury asked what the message Lina read was in the message found in Fahim's car. Back to see Eli, Lina intends to take him away, but Eli was about to report Lina for the incident. Because Eli wanted to arrest her, Lina chose to leave. Before leaving, Lina, who is smart, already understood that this prison had been arranged by her father. They are under Driss's power. After snatching the gun from the guard, Lina already knew that the masked villain was her own father. Driss had also killed her adoptive father, Darius, and now Driss plans to kill Fury. Lina is back in action to fight her father's plot. Realizing Fury was in danger, Lina immediately went to save her, and as it turns out, the Orso, who is still alive, has risen from the grave, and he was placed in a dog cage by Parks. And after that, the story continues into episode 6. The chronology of events is not described, but Selma the Fury was killed by Driss. Her body was even burnt right in front of Lina and her team. The Fury's death will certainly make a massive war between the Mafia. Therefore, Lina has a big responsibility as the new Fury to stop it. Selma's death is certainly a great opportunity for Parks, who has been pursuing her position. Selma's husband Papu is in disbelief after hearing the news that his wife has died. Lina promised him that she would give a worse revenge to the culprit. At the same time, Driss and his accomplices went on another attack to slaughter all the Mafia bosses. The target this time was the Key brothers, as well as seizing all their gold bars. After the Key brothers' men were slaughtered, it was the Mafia boss's turn to be finished off using a hand grenade. The grenade was stuffed into his mouth. Simon and Booves found out that Driss was the culprit. Selma had kept it a secret all this time for the safety of both of them. As the new Fury appointed by Selma, Simon couldn't help but accept Lina's orders. He believed Driss was launching random attacks. This time, the next suspected target of Driss was the Duke who ran a marijuana plant business. Coming to his places, the Mafia boss seemed relaxed with his snake, as he felt he had doubled the Lina's guarding. He felt he didn't need Lina and her team's help. Unwilling to give up, Lina told Duke that one of his men often stole his illegal plants. Suddenly, the perpetrator ran away and was immediately arrested. Because of this information, the Duke was finally willing to accept Lina's help. They began to prepare themselves because Lina was sure that Driss and his gang were coming to attack. But it turned out that what came was Parks and his men. Lina was hit by Orso. Apparently Parks had killed one of Driss' men first before attacking the Duke. Now the Duke prefers Parks to help guarding him rather than Lina. Lina and her team were instead assigned to bury the body of Driss's men. Simon, who was upset, chose to leave Lina. The booze was forced to go with her. It turned out that Driss had launched an attack on the Mama's business. While digging, Lina is hit from behind. The Mafia bosses saw the footage of Driss slaughtering the lieutenants assigned to guard them. He vows to hunt them all down, ending what he started 20 years ago. Mama made the suggestion to assign Damocles to deal with Driss. This radical, high-risk solution seemed like one they should take. The problem is, what reward does Damocles want? Is it money for part of their business, or one of the Mafia boss heads? Before taking the final solution, they hope Parks can play his role to kill Driss and his henchmen. After regaining consciousness, Lina saw footage of her adoptive parents plotting against Olympus and killing Fury in order to save Lina. At that time, they were talking to Jelly and had teamed up with Driss. Lina's adoptive mother didn't want Lina to become a Fury, who would one day be shot to death, like the previous Furies. Driss suddenly appeared in front of bulletproof glass. Even though they were her adoptive parents, Lina wanted to get back at Driss. She refused her biological father's offer to cooperate. Lina invited Simon and Boogs to see Selma's body. This was due to the revelation that 2 of Driss's men had died from scratches. According to Lina, it's a message that Fury is still alive. To convince them, Lina invited Papu to see and hold Selma's body. After holding it, Selma's husband is convinced that this is not her body. Now it's their job to find Selma again. It turns out that Selma is in Driss's custody. Driss apparently has a big goal to rob the armored train, where the Mafia bosses hide gold, paintings, and all their treasures. Driss forces Selma to tell him the route of the train. On the other hand, Boogs gets information that Parks has been appointed by the mob bosses as their new Fury. To Lina's astonishment, how could Parks know that the Duke would be attacked? It turned out that Parks had been working with Driss. Although his men were sacrificed, Driss needed access to the Mafia boss's secrets, which were only held by a Fury. It appears that Driss' cell phone was given full access to their secrets. Long story short, Lina immediately intercepted Parks, but Orso appeared, who immediately stabbed Lina. It turns out that Parks was tricked because Orso more chose Lina over his boss, and finally the Parks was shot dead. This armored train called Mine operates under Paris. With a length of 77 meters and special security devices, the treasure of this Mafia boss, in fact, exceeds the GDP of France. Driss is surprised that the key to his mine is now in the hands of Lina, who wants to exchange it for Selma's freedom. The father and daughter meet at a location. Selma is seen being taken by Driss's men. Both have placed snipers, but Lina, who is smarter, chooses to kneel because dozens of special forces from the police have surrounded them. They were all eventually arrested, including Selma, Driss, and Lina. Orso is invited by Parks' men to free their new boss, who was arrested by the police. Meanwhile, the Mafia bosses decided to ask Damocles for help. No longer to kill Driss, but they want to finish off Fury. And after that, the story continues into episode 7. Suddenly, the prison car carrying Fury, Lina, and Driss is attacked by the Parks gang. Kita and Eli are left to try and fight off the attackers. Later, a house in the forest is used as a place to defend. The owner was told to go to the nearest police station for help. Going inside, Kita used radio communication device to contact another policeman, but was prevented by Lina, as the woman's voice was that of Parks' gang. A defenseless policeman is shot dead, after which Lina orders her team to search the area. Lina, Selma, and Driss are handcuffed in a room. Despite Lina's attempts to offer help, Eli no longer cares about her. With the gun and the remaining bullets they had, they certainly wouldn't be able to face the assassins. They put up a makeshift barricade to cover the door and windows. Suddenly, Selma's illness returned. Driss helped Lina remove the handcuffs so that Lina could save Selma. Not long after, the enemy began to arrive. Gunfire ensued again. Keita was helpless as bullet pierced his stomach. Lina appears to confront the attacker. Before Lina was killed, Eli helped her, but Driss suddenly pointed his gun at Eli. It was Selma who helped remove the handcuffs. Unexpectedly, the Parks team on their way to the location were slaughtered within seconds. As Eli wanted to be finished off, the killers opened fire again. Selma immediately sprayed a fire extinguisher to block Damocle's view. These were international mercenaries capable of killing presidents to Supreme Court justices, including Fury. Selma couldn't believe Olympus had called them. Feeling that he was also a target, Driss invited them to work together to face Damocles. But Lina first took back her cell phone, which contained the key to unlocking the mafia's treasure. Meanwhile, Simon and Boots are still searching for their location. Lina secretly hides her cell phone inside a stuffed sheep's head. Fury believes the enemy will launch an attack later tonight. Trying to plan something on the roof, Lina is almost hit by enemy fire. Later that night, Eli is surprised by the appearance of Orso. He came to help them face Damocles. Driss used several knives to create a trap. One of the Damocles is seen standing in front of the house, as if giving a challenge. Driss said Lina's mother didn't die in an accident, but because of Selma's actions. Suddenly, the owner of this house came back, asking to go inside. He had explosives hidden in his jacket, and then there was an explosion in the house. As a result of the incident, Eli and the dazed Orso became targets. Lina chose to save the Orso first, which resulted in Eli being shot. From here, the fierce battle began again. As the Damocles moved forward, gas cylinders rolled off the roof and were shot by Driss. Unfortunately, one of the assassins was still moving because he was equipped with a bulletproof suit. The shots fired by Orso didn't work at all, and instead, he became the target. Lina provoked the enemy to chase her. That's when the knife trap hit the killer's body. Meanwhile, Selma faced off against one of the Damocles in the forest. Almost a victim, Driss comes to save his daughter. Likewise with Selma, who was saved by the Buus. After the enemy was slaughtered, Driss ran away with his cell phone because Keita had leaked it. When Keita wanted to shoot Lina, Eli suddenly kills the policeman first. Lina wanted to know was Selma killed her mother. It turns out that Lina's biological mother is an undercover police officer. After her cover was blown and known, Kahina disappeared, and Driss, who felt betrayed, then hunted down his family. Until now, it is unclear where Lina's biological mother is, and after that, the story continues into episode 8. Selma appears in front of the Mafia bosses to reveal her mission in hunting Driss. Driss and his accomplices start hunting for gold, expensive paintings, which are the treasures of the Mafia bosses. But there is another main target, which is a data center located in the last railroad car of the train. Selma and the team attempt to thwart the evil plans of her brother, who wants to use the software to find Kahina and kill her. Driss forces it on the train to unravel the password. Meanwhile, his men are busy robbing the gold. That's when Fury and Lina return to action to slaughter them all. To get a clue where the gold is going, Lina throws the bag containing the gold as well as her cell phone, which contains a tracking device. It's Simon and Buus's job to investigate. Fury gives an important tips to breathe in order to get oxygen into her brain. So, in an emergency situation, she can stay focused. After the code is unlocked, one of the remaining 8 employees is now tasked with finding the Kahina's location. It turns out that Fury found active explosives that were timed to blow up this train. It's very dangerous if the bomb explodes at the station. Lina continues her mission, while Fury will defuse the bomb. Eli, traumatized, intends to confess to Keita's brother that he killed her. However, Orso, who is there, prevents him. Until the two got into a fierce fight. Until Lina called them to find out where this train was, so that it would be directed to a safe place, which wouldn't make civilian casualties. But first, they have to face the security forces who won't let them in without a high-ranking official. Inside the expensive painting railroad car or wagon, Lina confronted Driss's henchmen. They were all successfully slaughtered. Until now, the existence of this ghost train has been difficult to detect. Lina now had to face Driss and his men in the server room. Not wanting to waste energy, Lina deliberately triggered the fire alarm with a lighter. Because this server is vulnerable, instead of water suddenly spraying, the oxygen inside is sucked out. This is where Lina used her breath control tips. All of her enemies died out of breath, but none of them were her father, Driss. Exiting the train, Lina opened fire on Driss, then chased after him. Fury managed to defuse the explosive in time. Fury could find Driss, who was already weak and helpless. Meanwhile, Simon and Boogs could slaughter Driss's henchmen who want to take away all the gold. It turns out that the one who slaughtered Kahina's family was not Driss, but Selma. Now Driss is surrendered to being shot dead by his sister, rather than Lina killing him. Although the Mafia bosses want Selma and Lina dead, Fury changes their minds. After meeting her adoptive mother, Amethyst, Lina goes to Ali to say goodbye. Who makes surprise? All of these Mafia bosses had apparently been slaughtered. Suddenly, Damocles' mercenaries appeared and surrounded the two of them. Damocles' boss appeared and asked the two of them who they were working for. But after that, the movie ended.